Welcome to episode number 4 of the Daily Closing Podcast. Guys, great to have you with us today. We got a couple of things that we want to cover. Guys, good to see you.
Good to see you here.
Lorena Pernaleta, good to see you. Alexis.
Thank you.
Marvin Del Valle here with you guys today. A couple of things that we want to highlight, and then we'll revisit a couple of these things. First of all, food supply in general, I will say just about every potential supply has been disrupted. We have 1,000%. Is very obvious for the first time since I've been in this country. Like for the first time. Like I never walked into a supermarket second guessing, is it going to be there? Right? That's something that normally happens in my country. We're going to revisit, talk about that.
How long have you been here?
34 years approximately. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've been here for 22. Same thing.
Yeah, never had that issue. But egg prices, what's going on with egg? Talking about the golden egg, right? It's like,
That's funny.
and not the golden egg for retirement. Like, told my wife I was going to take her out to a very expensive place. They make omelets. You know what I mean?
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
I'm going all
Is it
out.
at a gas station? Because that'll be like...
I'm going all out, man. I'm telling you, it's like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but prices has been escalating, for 9 consecutive weeks. You're talking about inflation going down, but at the
That's
same time,
crazy.
we have we don't see prices, stabilizing. They continue to go up. So obviously, inflation have to be part of the prices. Some of the items that are being affected. Guys, I want to give you an update about a report that came out today, also about COVID-19.
Okay. So it's not done yet. This is not
apparently,
done.
Apparently,
It's-
we forced.
Another one.
I thought we was gonna close that, but it's not
we
done.
forced to talk about this because so I'm a guy that I believe in science. I have absolutely no issues. There's nothing about me or where I come from or based on what I believe religion-wise that conflicts with science, right?
Gotcha.
The thing is that when I approach science and when everything that science has the capability to do, I see it from one simple perspective. You know what I mean? I want to see us being capable to bring solutions, real solutions, especially when it comes to health solutions that are needed.
Gotcha.
Like I would
That
love
makes
to
sense.
know that we are capable to save lives, right? So anything that can help us do that, but at the same time, if we getting some fake reports, right, or if the reports that are coming out are not helpful, not truthful, and I'll go back to that in a second, but. And also, I definitely want to touch about what's going on with all these classified documents that recently came out under President Biden. That, by the way, happened during the time that he was a vice president. But how are you guys doing? What do you see out there? Again, great to have you here today.
Yes. Well, thank you for having us on the 4th episode. I'm actually super excited.
Cuatro.
Yeah, I know, right? But first thing with the food, I didn't even find out about it from the news first. I was shopping for groceries, right? And then I was actually picking up, I think it was like French fries or something like that. I don't remember what it was. But then on the racks,
The
it
healthy
said,
stuff,
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah. It's like,
I don't even,
leave it to the vegans. It's like...
Either-
French fries.
Yeah, it was something like that, right? When I was looking for French fries, and then they said for all potato products that, and this is a regular grocery store, it wasn't like no fancy grocery, regular grocery store, but they was like all potato products because of food shortages, they're limited to 2 per customer. And I don't remember ever seeing something like this where they limit how many.
Can I tell
packages
you,
or something.
I got that picture. I don't know if it was a picture or video, but it freaked me out.
Yeah.
Just because that's how stuff is in my country. It's like, and it happened very gradually. Oh, only 2 of these, only 1 of these.
Yeah.
Only, and then all of a sudden we have none.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, we're replacing this with that. And then you have to make Harry Potter along lines, as far as like going to the ride in order for you to get basic food needs based on the number of your IDs.
So even when you see today, guys, I mean, places like your country, even people with money right now going to the supermarket, and by the way, that's when it actually gets very scary. People actually have access to money. There's nothing to buy. Like, what do you do when that happens, right? And what happens when you take away consumer confidence, from that guarantee that supply? You know what I mean? Like I remember making that argument probably about 7 years ago in my country, right? I was whatever the case was. I'm saying I go to the supermarket. I know where things are. I usually go to the same supermarket. And I know I go there with the confidence that those products are going to be there. When you start to go, just like you said, it wasn't just, you hear the news, you hear certain things, but you're not really paying a lot of attention to that situation up until the point that you're looking for a specific item, and it's just not there, right? So obviously, we still having issues with the proper flow of what is the supply chain. Not only food, but there's many other items though that's being affected. I don't know if there's anything else that besides some of those things that you were mentioning that you experience anything else that is becoming a little either hard to come by or seeing empty shelf spaces that's kind of like very unusual.
That was the main one, was that just because I did not expect that at all, was like I said, with the food. And it's something that you wouldn't think. It's like, oh, I got to worry about the potatoes. So you're not thinking about it. But at the same time, the price of everything is going up, obviously, which is, but nothing that I can remember that I didn't see or like that it's not on the shelves.
Well, let me give you some facts here. You know what I mean? Just to see it. So some specific items, as a matter of fact, that we're talking about items that are going up. Chicken and meat prices, the rising 24%. Flour, for some of us that like, some tortillas and some of the other stuff, 23%. Root and grocery inflation stands at 12 to 14%. Literally, you have people. This is like one of those things that it becomes difficult to process, though. Again, this is the wealthiest nation on the planet, and you go from now people are saying, "Hey, listen, we went from eating meat weekly to twice a week or once a week."
Got it.
To now maybe every other week, right? That's what I mean. It almost sounds like you're talking about somewhere else.
Yep.
Corn and soybean meal has increased over 125%.
Crazy.
The average household needs to spend an additional $500 to buy the same amount of groceries that you used to buy before.
But income hasn't gone up.
So what do we do?
Some people have gotten laid off.
People are losing jobs. We don't see, especially, even if you get a raise, what do you get? 1.5%? You know what I mean? So how do you compete with 24%? What do you compete with 125%?
Yeah, you can't.
Farmers are saying that there is a product that used to cost them $24 2 years ago that now is $46 1 year ago, and today $96 at that moment. So just think about that jump, right? Something that used to cost then farmers, the people that are providing the stuff that we are bringing to the table, right? Saying $24 to $46 the year after, which is a year ago, and today the same item is costing them $96. So what are they going to have to do? They have no choice but to pass that cost
correct.
to every single one of us.
Yep.
And so I think about a couple of issues, right? Obviously, we have some people that are dealing with very low incomes. And then the state of Florida, which is a retirement destination, right? And you start thinking about the elderly. Now, don't get me wrong. Some people came properly prepared. They're coming to retire very well. I'm thinking about the elderly in New York. I'm thinking about the elderly in cities that are already very expensive, overpriced as it is.
Yep.
And even the people that came down not very well prepared when it came to having, enough money to retire and stuff like that. What do you think is going to be the reality these people are going to be facing, guys?
I think it's going to be a way bigger issue than most people think. So, for example, like even going back a little bit when you talk about the farmers, like the fact that it's costing them 3 times the amount to produce the same amount of food. I remember I was watching a farmer talking about this, and they was like, wait another year, you're going to see food prices triple. And I remember this about a year ago, they were talking about it. But what's going to happen is this. It's not only expensive for us, it's expensive for the farmer, to where at some point the farmer can't afford to stay in the business of farming. So then now the only farmers that survive are the ones who get money from either the big ones or the ones who get money from the government, which now the government can pick and choose, oh, I like this type of farmer versus this type. So I think it's going to be the same thing that's going to translate into other areas, to where eventually elderly people aren't going to be able to afford to live. So the only ones who do get to live in a so-called comfortable way is the ones where they're going to get government assistance because the kids ain't gonna be able to take care of them, So it's gonna create a situation where people are gonna rely more and more on the government for everything, because because if you look at the food supply, you look at the people who have the most money, where if they can't afford to live, then now we end up in a situation where yes, the government's gonna step in and. Do what they get.
It was very scary what you just said right now, which is the government will get to choose, pick and choose. Who do I like? Who do I help?
Correct.
That's a real scary statement.
So in Venezuela, we make this thing called arepas, right?
Yeah.
Yes, by the way, I made it for you guys a couple times.
Yes.
So we make them, and it's made from an harina, which is a flour called harina pan. Harina pan was created, and it's as Venezuelan as like freaking pabellón. It's very. Right now, that is being produced in Colombia.
Where is the main source of
there's a bunch of...
It's a Venezuela or Colombia?
No, Venezuela, specifically that brand of massa.
Can I get all my Colombian friends?
Look. The best arepas are Venezuelans, just so you know. If you want controversy,
I just want to know what
you don't want to waste your time.
The arepa conspiracy is going to come out here and see what's...
The only thing that Colombians have is the arepa huevo, which is like a specialty thing. But anyway, that's about it. Everything else,
that you like
Venezuelan. Yeah, that's it. Oh, I love them. I'm like obsessed with them. Yeah. But my point to you is that companies like that, there's multiple candy companies and companies that me as a little kid growing up, I knew them. Right now, the products are being made. They're just being made in Colombia. So there's a generation right now that for real is going to think that arepas are made in Colombia. Not
by the way, what do you know right now about the fact, or do you know that literally the border between Colombia and Venezuela has been officially open? Any restrictions, any travel restrictions, or any thoughts about that?
I have a friend who she's been living in the U.S. as long as I have, over 20 years, and she's got to go visit her family because her parents, they could be here, but they don't want to. And she has no Venezuelan passport because it's expired, so she has to literally cross the border. So she's flying into Colombia and she's crossing the border so that she has the opportunity to get picked up somewhere somehow on the other side, so that they have the opportunity to go visit their family. Because
So is this a win-win situation, or are we gonna have a winner and a loser in this whole scenario? How do you see it?
I'm not really all that familiar with some of the consequences. I think if anything is bleeding out to Colombia, but I wouldn't necessarily be able to tell you. It's good that they're not giving my people a hard time to go in, just because again somebody like my friend is able to go through. But what are the consequences? I really don't because it's not a Mexico-U.S. type of border type of thing.
No. But when you think about, I want you to think about countries, right? And at some point, these guys were actually lumped together, right? When you think about Iran, when you think about North Korea, when you think about Venezuela, right? When you think about Cuba, if you want to throw Cuba into the mix, what they absolutely need just to be able to survive, they need a few countries that can actually, and by the way, this is how they were able to survive or successfully grow to a level of remain stable enough. North Korea has China. Iran has Russia, China, and some other countries from the Middle East. And right now, obviously for many years, the most significant relationship was Cuba. But, the Cuban economy, if anything, was benefiting from the Venezuelan economy. When that economy collapsed, obviously Cuba said, thank you very much. We can't help you, and you can't help us, so have a good life, right? Yeah. And it's very clear that was something that actually happened. But now that they have some other Latin American countries going, basically socialist, right? And to have one neighboring country is saying, we're gonna open the border. Yeah. All right, so now you have a traffic, and listen, obviously, you got to think about the people, right? The people that are suffering. You're talking about hunger, lack of medicine, lack of medical attention. There's so many things that you can list 1,000 things, just pure necessities, right? And And so obviously the people will benefit, but that also is just additional oxygen for a group of people
To
that
keep a cancer
shouldn't be
going.
ruling the country
Yeah,
anymore.
that's true.
You know what I mean? So I don't know that this is a win-win situation.
No, it definitely isn't.
I think that there will be definitely a winning side and a losing side, and I think that, and I have a few friends from Colombia that are telling me, you know, they expressing significant amount of concern right now because obviously it's just that would be the equivalent of the United States saying right now, hey guys, listen, we're just gonna open a border, forget about border patrol, you can just come and go as you please. Imagine lifting those restrictions. So let's see how that's gonna go and what's gonna happen with that whole situation. I don't know if you have any opinion about the arepas.
No,
right?
no.
You have
I'm
said.
saying my cooking
Yeah.
skill are at like what is it? At a threshold. Just don't say the wrong thing.
That's right.
I don't know about that, but guys, I told you that I wanted to revisit a little bit this whole situation with COVID, right?
Yeah.
Today, as a matter of fact, a report came out.
What's today? The 14th.
Today, the
January
14th of January 14th. Dr. Liana Wen, who is a medical analyst, and for CNN and the Washington Post, right?
Okay.
And this is after 2.5 years late from obviously COVID. We're going into the second year anniversary right now, 2022, 2023 now, 3-year anniversary.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Yeah.
So then over 2 years and a half.
As many episodes as us.
2 years and a half, right? This lady finally comes out and says, well, maybe what we reported in terms of the amount of death that were credited to COVID was a much smaller number. Well, and what are you talking about? Maybe 20% less. Was it 80% of the number, whatever that number was? Because at some point, remember, we're reporting 400 people on a daily basis, 150,000 people on a
We
daily
had a
basis.
thing.
And so
where
we're
Yeah,
tracking
yeah.
that on a daily basis. You remember daily trackers per
absolutely.
city, per state, people that were getting infected and so on and so forth, right? And then even per country, right? And so
Yep.
she's saying it appears, and by the way, they have these numbers a lot sooner, that only about 30% of the people that were actually reported. But by the way, guys, one person is already too many, right?
That's
Like
true.
I want to make sure that I don't take anybody
not okay.
passing from COVID lightly. You know what I mean?
So-
And I'm not an anti-vaccine, anti-COVID. I want for people to get the best possible treatment. I also hate when people go into a panic because when we're having a conversation about these numbers
Yeah.
of the inflation and things that are going up, this was one of the factors. How this whole situation was actually handled
Yeah.
led to a lot of the things that we have right now going on as a mess, the food supply being interrupted, and money basically becoming an issue right now for so many people. So I want to open it up like that to see if you have any opinion about this whole thing because 30%, and by the way, this is the first time that this is actually reported, so I can bet you that once it's actually scrutinized just a little more, that 30% could probably go down to like 15%,
I
right?
agree.
So
I think
it's
that
very
number's better.
scary.
Here's the way that I look at it. Wasn't this a conspiracy theory?
Well, that's what you even
That
gotta
was
be,
a- that was-
you gotta be
and
careful
so-
even talking about these things because again, you know what I mean. You might find yourself in the wrong side of the conspiracy. You know what I mean, according to many people.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Yeah, but then on this side, it's like, oh my God, what are you talking about? People are dying, people are this, and I'm like, I don't really know. So it's like this is happening, and my question is, where is the accountability? Who's gonna be held accountable, and what are the consequences? Because you're absolutely right. The number one thing, and pre-vaccine, post-vaccine, all of this stuff, whatever. I want everybody to stay healthy. I want everybody. At this very moment, you're absolutely right. Stuff is more expensive because of all of these moving pieces. Things weren't able to be moved as fast. People were kept outside of a job for a really long time. So all of that has a big consequence, and something that could have been dealt with in a couple months is lasted years. And so that has a big impact in the economy, on the way that we move around. And I mean, it's COVID is the reason why we have the current government that we have. No COVID, the story is completely different. So who's going to be held accountable? Those are my questions. I'm just asking questions. Is who's going to be held accountable, and how do we hold them accountable? And how do we like go back from where we're at right now, which is a mess.
So for me, I think number one, I think that a lot of the deaths that they counted as this was from COVID, it was still from COVID, even though it wasn't from COVID. And if you get what I'm saying, is that if like for example, let's say there's a fire, right? And now everybody's running, and then somebody gets trampled to death. The fire caused that death, even though the person didn't burn to death. So,
Right.
so I believe there's a lot of, depending on how you word it, there's a lot of deaths that can be attributed to COVID, even though the person didn't die from COVID.
Yeah.
So, for example, I know a big situation that happened in a lot of the hospitals. They were understaffed. Now they started bringing in people from all over the country. People were panicking, and then so now you got people who are untrained, overworked. So then now somebody can even die because the staff is just overwhelmed. But COVID was still the cause of them being overwhelmed. So even though the person didn't necessarily die from COVID, COVID was still the cause.
Part of the report, there's a phenomenal statement that literally says, you have to establish a difference between the people that die because of COVID,
Got you.
and the people that died with COVID.
Yes,
COVID.
yes,
So,
yes,
so
yes, yes,
I had
yes,
a heart
yes.
attack. I just happened to have COVID, right?
Correct. There
They're
you
not
go.
going to say that I died of
They're gonna say COVID, yeah,
we actually,
true, true.
I don't know if you remember this. At some point, I was saying, "What happened to cancer? Did it go away?"
Yeah, it
on
did.
vacation?
It did. Yeah. According to
anybody, no more
Yeah,
people
no-
dying from the
People
flu.
Yep, that's
Nobody
true.
else
Yep,
dying.
I get
from-
you.
No more
Yeah.
stuff. Like, and again, listen. I want to support the science.
Yeah.
That's going to give us the best possible
Give us
result.
the facts.
Right? And not,
Yes.
but so I want to be able to make an intelligent choice, right?
Yeah.
But I want to make the choice, and I want to make a very good health choice, right?
So here's the thing, and I sorry to cut you, but I think this coming out now, the biggest issue that it's gonna cause is now I'm thinking the conspiracy theorist was right. Right? Because if they were saying this before and then now you come out later, two and a half, 3 years later, telling me that the conspiracy theorist was right, here's the issue, is that most conspiracies are crazy. But now if you tell me that the crazy person won and they were correct, now how do I know what to believe from them? So then now it's gonna turn to a lot of people are gonna now believe a lot of other conspiracies where a lot of them may be just a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah.
But now you're validating the conspiracy theorists.
You're absolutely right.
So
Here's the thing, though. Anybody that asks questions or that says something different
Yep.
automatically
Yeah.
I believe it's happening still today.
Yeah.
Anybody that is either questioning or saying something that doesn't go with the narrative
Yeah.
is automatically labeled as that's a conspiracy theory.
I get you.
And so, it is a very dangerous place to be because you don't know where to turn if you're looking for sanity. So that's what I mean. We need, like, for real accountability. And it's crazy because news channels like CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and all of these guys, it's like they're the ones that people turn to get that. And it's crazy that from a podcast you can get better information because somebody's saying, I refuse to believe that all that they're feeding me is right. Let me go ask some questions and you
Yeah.
find some different things.
Yeah.
I think that's becoming a lot more difficult to do. I don't think is that easy anymore for anyone to, if you put in a legitimate objection about how things were handled, that they can just disqualify it that easily and accuse somebody of being either, against science or pro conspiracy and stuff like that. That's not that easy anymore. Precisely because, just like everything else, the way it always works, numbers are going to continue to come out.
True.
Meaning the truth is going to come out, right?
Yeah.
And so, by the way, this is one of those cases where you're not going to have two groups that held opposite positions be right. Somebody's going to have to be right.
Yeah, you're right.
So, by the way, I want to mention the other day, Vali Tame and Patrick Bet-David had Neil deGrasse Tyson in one of his interviews. And they interviewed this guy, and I'm like losing it. I'm like, Patrick is going to have to forgive me for, I think I was sending him like 1,000, text messages. You're saying, what is wrong with this guy? But I was listening to the whole thing, and here's a couple of things that I want to tell you about that, right? Patrick goes into the conversation literally saying, knowing what we know now, and this guy, by the way, do you know who Neil
Yeah, absolutely.
Tyson
Yeah.
is? This guy's a physicist. This is not a lightweight guy.
Yeah.
This is a very smart guy, scientist, who immediately threw the scientist card on the table. Listen, I look at information. This is his answer, literally, almost verbatim, right? I look at information from a scientist perspective.
Okay.
Which means I know shit and you don't, right? That was like I just wanted to throw something at the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So that started the
What
wrong
did he
way.
say?
Such an arrogant way.
Yeah.
He said, I looked at the numbers. He said, I know your concern right now is, well, how many people, because we were talking about the people that were forced to do something. That listen, military personnel. I have some very good friends that are military personnel, right? And they were forced to get vaccinated or you're going to lose your job. And this man spoke about we have a social contract among each other, right? Which you have the right to die if you want to, but you don't have the right to kill me. Fair enough, right? And he said that he was supporting his position still based on the information that he had, meaning he looked at the facts, he looked at the numbers, he looked at the data, and I'm like, which data are you looking at?
Was it
Which one? Was definitely not this. This was definitely not that. This was definitely not
Let's look at the other
that.
number.
I'm gonna package this. I'm gonna make sure that Patrick sends this to this guy.
Yeah.
Because the fact of the matter is that if you're looking at the data, and the fact of the matter is that the data is not out yet fully. We're still
Correct.
gonna have a lot of stuff coming out. So this is a big issue. He's saying the fact that some people, have to lose their job is a small price to pay compared to the lives that we save. We don't know what we save. We don't know. I'm telling you this right now. You cannot make that claim when somebody's saying, well, the people that died, so you really don't know what was the effectiveness of the
There's
vaccine.
people that killed themselves because they lost their job.
We don't know. We really don't know yet. So for anybody to say, I looked at the data,
Yeah.
which one? What were you
correct,
looking at?
correct.
Because it hasn't been out. The second thing is there's a comment that he makes connected to the economy, right? And he said that the money that we have to put into the economy, which I think that Adam wanted to make a
So
reference.
he's a scientist and an economist?
Apparently he was looking at
got
the data.
it.
Well, he looks
okay.
at the data. You know what I mean? You say, what I mean? So he's trying to support, which immediately tells me what your political position happens to be. And you certainly, Mr. Tyson, you're not looking at this from a financial perspective. You were not looking at numbers. You were definitely not looking at the economy. This had definitely a political angle. You know what I mean? When he's saying, well, what did you want them to do? They have to put all that money into the system to avoid a real estate or market collapse in general. What do you think is happening right now? And all we managed to do was to get eggs to be 100 times more expensive than they were,
$12.
because by pouring that much money into the system is precisely, Mr. Tyson, as you create inflation, right? That when there's so much money circulating, that's when everybody says, hey, wait a minute. I can sell you this same can that before I had to sell you for 49 cents. Now I can sell it to you for $1.50. And guess what? You have enough money to pay. The problem is that when you run out of that money and that can still at $1.50, that's a problem, right? Which now is $3. So I definitely have an issue when people make blanket statements like this.
Correct.
The numbers are not out. The economy has a lot of moving parts, always has, always will.
Yeah.
And we know that when you put that much money into this, so two very bad statements made by a very intelligent guy.
Yeah.
Who am I to
So-
question?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yes.
So there's this video that this guy made. His name is Ray Dalio, and it says how the economy machine works. You should watch that. It's like a 30-minute video. I'm not being sarcastic, for real. It shows you exactly how inflation is.
By the way, that goes for everybody. That
Yeah,
would be- that's
it's a
good
suggestion
video,
for everybody. But
Yeah.
Mr. Tyson, if you're listening, please.
That's
So for me, just my little comment on this, I actually don't believe in science as much as most people believe in it. Not even a little bit. And the reason why is because, the truth is that science is more of a process than telling you correct information. So if I go through a process to prove my point, that doesn't mean that's the ultimate truth. And so even with the numbers, we've gotten different numbers from different sources. So even if I were to take a scientific approach, we got doctors saying one thing on one side and a doctor saying another thing on another. And these are both professionals, went to school. So then it's like, so which science is the real science? That's the problem. You know, so obviously I'm joking. I believe in science, but the problem is
from
is
the
that,
Alexa point of view. He's looking at it from the Alexa point
so
of view.
the problem is, like, and I think you said it, is that what happens when somebody decides to highlight only certain numbers, you know, or what happens when somebody decides to say, okay, my science is more important than your science. It's like, which science is the real science, you know? Because there was a lot of, I don't try to pretend that I'm a doctor, but when I hear a doctor or someone who was working on creating the vaccine telling you that there's an issue with the vaccine, I think we should listen to that individual. You get what I'm saying? So then it definitely, I think there's definitely political views involved in a lot of what a lot of people were saying revolving around COVID, because they don't want to take blame for certain things.
Correct.
They don't want to make it look like they weren't being proactive with certain things. Because like you were saying, you're like, somebody's got to take accountability. But then here's the problem. This is a big group of individuals that's making decisions. So then how do you put blame on one individual versus another, or which group do you decide to say, it's your fault versus another person's fault? And then, so I understand what you're saying. Somebody should be held accountable, but who?
Somebody's.
But it's not only that, though. The issue is that, you know, when everybody's looking for credible sources of information, right? It's like that what's actually happening right now, and you stated that point just a couple of minutes ago, which is people are going to podcasters. People are going to somebody else is having a conversation that's just a fair conversation, because that's what I'm looking for. You know what I mean? What I'm looking for, I'm okay if you want to be extra careful. I'm okay if you want to promote certain ideas and certain things, but you also got to say, okay, so what's happening in the other side? What's actually happening with a person that doesn't believe this is the right way to go? What are you thinking? So there's no more discussion. There's no more, like, people got shut down. Channels were shut down because of this crap.
Yeah.
Well,
because of this crap, people were put out of business.
True.
So yes, you're right. For me, it's a little bit more of, there's gotta be a difference between news and opinion. And I believe there's a lot of
Especially
opinion
political
happening versus news. And by the way, there's no problem with you having an opinion. Please share it. But it's gotta say, this is an opinion. What we're discussing here is not news. We're just saying, here is the news that we got from God knows, right? And so it's like, this is our opinion based on that. And so that for me is super important, because the moment opinions become news, then it's an agenda being pushed, and it doesn't end well. It just doesn't.
Well,
obviously.
The numbers are not out yet.
No, and it's not
We still have a long way to go. This is one of those things that is not 2 years, 3 years later. This is 20 years later, 30 years later that the real numbers are going to come out. So I'm asking my good friends that always get a little excited about this conversation, just wait and see.
True.
Wait and see.
It's gonna be in 2033. It's like, were you around in 2019? Did you have anything? Because now there's a lawsuit where you can get $100,000.
There's a couple of things
you had anything to do with
There's
that's what's gonna happen.
a couple of things that I cannot wait to see. I cannot wait to see all those, class action lawsuits to come out.
Yep.
And the second thing is, there's a few people that I still believe there are going to end up locked up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're going to get arrested, because there's a lot of stuff, the way some of these things were managed, unless, some people have immunity, or they're going to die, because some of these people, that only God knows how long it's going to take, but we'll see what's going to happen. Anyway, guys, that is that. I was happy to see this.
Can we not talk about this anymore?
I'm going to, you know what? Here's a promise.
I don't believe it. I don't believe it. We're going to talk about it.
Here's a promise. I promise you that if something really relevant again comes out about COVID-19, I'm still going to bring it up, because this shit we need. Anyway, guys, big news. I don't know if you know what the hell is going on, but Shakira.
No, my girl. Actually, my wife's girl. Nori's like obsessed.
Full disclaimer, I'm in that camp also, you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, like obsessed with Shakira?
1,000%, right?
I like
so, I don't,
She's that.
What? Get out. What?
I mean, I don't have no problem with Shakira.
It's like, get out.
I don't have no problems with her, but she's cool.
So you know that her husband used to play for Barcelona, Piqué. Oh, Piqué.
Piqué,
However,
yeah. Princess Piqué.
Yeah, so so a couple of things, right? So keep this very simple. I think that most people already know what's going on with Dan. It's got picked up by everybody, but it's getting picked up for a couple of wrong reasons. Obviously, everybody was talking about the whole situation where the marriage is breaking up because he got involved with some of the relationship, and it appears that there was some foul play that took place out of that. You know what I mean? But the way everything is playing out in the eyes of the media. But by the way, that's how it's being played out, right? First, and then apparently she came out with a brand new song.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was today or yesterday.
Is that rap?
Everywhere, right? But she's like ripping him apart. So let me start by.
Good.
I hope you make a ton of money.
Sorry, baby, hace rato que yo te vi tocar ese gato. Una loba como yo no está pa' novato. Una loba como yo no está pa' tipos como tú.
It's on millions and millions and
gonna
millions
make a
and
lot of
millions of
money.
dollars.
Yeah,
I
that's
think she will.
You see, accountability.
And by the way, when you're already a public person, you're gonna have no choice but to go through very private issues in front of publicly. It's like you can't hide from anybody.
That's true.
But I saw a couple of reactions also from him, you know, and I think this guy is just extremely girly and emotional. It doesn't come across like being a very manly man like my good
Well, he got
friend.
Shakira, so
My
he
very
did
good
something
friend
right.
Schwarzenegger. Well, maybe she likes maybe she likes pretty boys. You know what I mean? I don't know what the story is. And emotional guys. You know what I mean? I don't know what's
Get
the story with
yourself
that. But I'm
like
gonna
that.
tell you, I think you're gonna see this playing out for a little while up until the point that everybody gets extremely tired. But I don't know if you guys have any opinion about that, or maybe your wife should have been the one.
My wife should have been the one that
expressing
she'd be like, "Go,
level
girl!"
of
Like, yeah,
concern.
she's like, well, here's the only thing that I will say is I'm glad that she has the courage to like channel whatever frustrations. I do know that this guy cheated on her, and so somewhere somehow like it's not, and like she has an issue as far as taxes and stuff like that, but she wasn't living there, so there's a lot of controversy around her. And I think that this is the way of her saying like, hey, like this is at least if I'm gonna be going through this shit hole, like I wanna speak my truth, number one, and obviously it's going viral. You're gonna make a lot of money with it. So I'm hoping that that's the case for her. Other than that, Piqué for me is a damn princess. That's about it.
Yeah, here's the one thing that I could tell. I mean, I always had a favorable opinion of her. You know what I mean? As an artist, she has a very good relationship with, mom and dad. Always made it very clear the family was extremely
Great
important to
foundation.
her. She's got some beautiful children.
Yeah.
Obviously, going through a couple of relationships already that did not work out the way they were supposed to. She's very talented, a beautiful girl. I hope things work out at the end. You know what I mean? And I really mean that. I hope she makes a ton of freaking money. And for the people that are criticizing right now, though, that are saying, "Oh, she's going to capitalize what is supposed to be a loss." Are you familiar with a guy named Julio Iglesias? By the way, his whole career is built on, you left me, and if I would have my life, like this guy became a you're talking about a superstar. And that was his whole angle.
Yeah.
And by the way, I think he was the one actually doing the cheating.
Oh,
But
He was capitalizing on his
But he
own.
definitely capitalized. So I hope you make a ton of money,
Yeah.
Shakira.
More power to you,
And
girl.
please
Go
come
for it.
visit so that we can,
Yeah.
for a concert. And Orlando, Florida. I
Yes,
know that
right
you're going to be in Miami, close to us. So welcome to the state of Florida. We're happy to have you with us. I promise you're not going to have the same tax issues that you were having over there here.
In Spain, move to
So-
Mickey Mouse
so-
Town.
That's
All
fine.
that
But anyway, guys, the last thing that I definitely wanted to touch upon today I'm trying to remember exactly where I was when the news came out that Mar-a-Lago was being raided by the FBI.
I was in the airplane.
Is that where
We were on the
traveling,
airplane
weren't
on way to, it was either a big event, Million Point Base Shop, something like that.
we were
No.
traveling somewhere.
We were going to Vegas.
We were going to Las Vegas.
Yeah,
right?
I
Is that
was
what happened?
on the airplane and I got the news and my mom called me like freaking out.
Yeah, saying, you know what I mean? Like,
No
first of
one's
all, it's always painful to watch. I can go back to the situation that happened with Bill Clinton and Monica
Yeah.
Lewinsky.
Yeah.
For me, I look at the individual, right, who happens to be the president, and you can say that that person has made a lot of limitations, a lot of flaws, or whatever you can say at a personal level. Then I look at the office of the presidency.
Okay.
Right, and I think that should be respected, no matter what, right? And a lot of times it's not properly respected.
That's
You know what I
true.
mean? That's
I
one of the
agree.
things that I become concerned about. And so that's what I'm saying. This is not just a Trump situation. Right? I mean, I go back to the days of Bill Clinton. I think that was definitely not properly handled. I think there was abuses, and in many cases, the office of the presidency was not respected. Then the same way that I believe that what happened in Mar-a-Lago was extremely disrespectful to the whole. But again, let's assume there's some mistakes that can potentially lead to even a criminal situation. Right now they're talking about criminal indictments. You know what I mean? Just because there's a possibility that there was really information there that was not supposed to be there, and the way that it got there, and not being properly protected. But now it comes out. You got to remember that even if you're no longer the president of the United States, Secret Service is always with you.
Yeah, forever. Yeah.
Right. So I don't know when everybody's saying, well, it was not properly protected when you got it to a different level. So now it comes out.
It is called Secret Service.
Maybe. But now it comes out that President Biden, who at that time was Vice President Biden, right? And we need to establish a difference between a president that actually has the ability to take some documents and literally, as a president, he has the privilege to say, I'm going to make sure that some of these documents. Let me share with you a little bit of what the whole perspective happens to be. Just to be able to look at some of the documents and say, you know what, we're gonna say that these documents are no longer classified. And a president constitutionally has the power to say, I can declassify certain documents, right?
Yeah.
But let's assume that all of that was not properly done. That's not a power that a vice president has. That's something that is only limited to the president. Not only that there are significant concerns about the locations, right? His son obviously is being heavily questioned about activities with either China or some other governments, right? And he makes it very clear that other than himself, the people that had access to that garage, where the first one is obviously a situation at home, and then one of the other centers that's being built connected to him, right? It's being heavily sponsored, by the way, by other countries, right? So I want to know what is your take about that? Are you paying attention to anything that's going on with this side of it right now?
So no, for me, I mean, I hear about it. Everything, obviously, you can't not hear about these things. Do I know all the different things that are going on to it to make an opinion to say, okay, I know for sure this is wrong or this is something that should or shouldn't happen? No, I try, honestly, this is how I look at it, and I try my best to know what's going on, but know what's going to make the biggest impact in my life right now. So for me now, I'm not saying that this is not an important issue. I think it is. We all should be, aware of everything that's going on. But I'm more concerned about the fact that there's too many people who don't know, like, how they're going to pay for these, $50 eggs, right now, so that's just where my brain is at most of the time. But yeah, I always hear about, everything that's going on, whether I want to or not, unfortunately.
For me, I second what you're saying. The thing is, it's going to be interesting because now it's going to be a rules for thee, but not for me type of situation. With this situation, so what was on the documents? I still don't know. I don't know what. I've had a hell of a week, so I haven't been able to dig into it. And I know that this popped out this week.
Correct.
So, but what I do know is that, and you're absolutely right, there is a big difference between the president and the VP. Correct. And so, but I think it levels the playing field for me. Outside of whatever investigations into the office of the presidency, is scary because it sends a message to every single one of us that if those guys are not like safe, then how the hell am I safe? You know what I mean? So it's like, for me, I look at it from that perspective. So I'm not okay with it happening everywhere because for somewhere somehow the presidents and the vice presidents are treated like celebrities. But then again, I don't know what is happening here. I do believe that there is a level of accountability that's necessary. I just don't know where the balance is, and I don't know what's
See, the problem is that this really becomes political musical chairs. You know what I mean? What I mean by that is what you do to my guy, right, who was a Republican, and everybody who's in the political and the Republican Party is saying we're gonna do it to your guy when it's his turn, and so every single one of the Democrats now are saying, okay, whatever you do to my guy now,
We gonna get
and
you.
this is just becomes a real vicious
It doesn't
cycle.
help.
And constitutional powers, though, is something that everybody, I mean, just in general, I will tell you a couple of things, right? A vice president just simply doesn't have the power to declassify documents.
Makes
That's
sense.
something that a president is absolutely exclusive to the president. So the only reason why I'm bringing this up right now, and I'm dying to see how it's going to develop, and I'm going to tell you why. I really believe that Democrats are going to have to be extremely careful to what they do to Donald Trump. Because if that guy has constitutional powers, if that guy has Secret Service, if that guy had what it becomes essentially his home is where these things were supposed to be in a quasi or at least secure enough location. At least that's what the argument the Trump administration was making, or his camp was making. Even though Democrats are saying that's not the case, things were exposed. They were definitely not as exposed as just being in the garage of a house
Yeah.
next to my Corvette. You know what I mean? Which is saying, oh
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
my Corvette is there. And well, so who had access to that? Well, my two sons. And one of them
awesome.
unfortunately already passed away, and the other one is in question. The other thing, again, we go back to the issue. He didn't have the power to declassify documents. There's a second location now in question, and it appears this is not done yet. It appears that there's potentially more that's going to come out. So they definitely got to be careful from this point on, moving forward with what they're going to do to Donald Trump, because whatever applies to Donald Trump is going to apply to this man
Okay.
at a greater level of liability. Because again, president, vice president, different constitutional
So I got a
rights,
question about this. I don't
constitutional
even know. If
powers. Yeah.
So if the vice president doesn't have the power to declassify documents, right? Then who's even deciding like what documents should be classified versus not classified? Because I would think that, and like I said, this is just me. I would think the vice president should be a part of that group that can say whether something is or isn't, or if not, then who is the people deciding whether something should or should?
There's a better question.
Yeah,
than that.
all right.
There's a better question than that. What was he doing with those classified
That's true.
documents?
Yeah. No.
Hey,
And that's true.
Who decides?
I'm like, is
That's
it like
true.
taking
That's
home?
true.
Like, what is
Yeah,
it?
yeah,
Work
yeah.
That's
home?
true.
Like, type
That's
of thing?
true.
Like,
That's true. I don't know. Yeah.
Forget about who.
It's a little late. I'm in the office. Let me just take it. Like,
It'll take me an extra half an
Yeah.
hour just to explain the whole process of classifying a document
Yeah.
and who holds records and all of that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, what was he
doing as a vice president? Listen, a
Yeah.
president has the power, again,
Yeah.
constitutional right to say,
Gotcha.
okay, I'm taking this box, I'm taking this box. Is there anything classifying it? Can I declassify those set of documents? And then
Yeah,
that's
so
and you're
funny.
supposed to, all you
Yeah.
have to do is pronounce yourself over
Yeah.
the documents on hereby declassifying, right? And so, and I'm taking my box with me. This guy didn't have the right to do that, right? And again, I want to be
he
extremely
was just
careful.
working from home.
Extremely careful, because here we go. It's a sitting president. Regardless of how much you agree or disagree with him as an individual, as a
president.
professional politician that's been playing this game for over 40
100
years,
years.
with almost no results. With almost no results, right?
Almost.
I'm trying to be nice here, you know what I mean? But I will tell you, I still want to be respectful to the office of the
Yeah.
presidency. You know what I mean? I want to see where this whole thing is going to go. All I'm saying is, precisely for that reason, they're going to have to be extremely careful to how they handle Donald Trump moving forward, because whatever they do to him, it's going to come back to this man. So let's see if
Yeah, I get
what
you.
changes. You know
So
what
do
I
you
mean?
think that will happen though? Because in all fairness, I think that like a lot of the stuff is what I was saying is rules for thee and not for me.
Yeah.
And who's gonna be paying attention when the country is so divided, and when you disagree with something, then it goes back to your
Well, when you
conspiracy
said
theory.
president about something, You know what I mean? That can literally be used, you know what I mean, against another person because again, it was already done.
Yeah.
Especially if the court systems, any of the courts, uses something against one specific person or specific situation, that literally sets precedence. So they get a chance to use it again. So if they're gonna go a criminal route through Donald Trump,
I see
that
what
would
you're
set
saying.
precedent for them to say, okay, that's the route you're gonna go. We're gonna use the same set of rules. You know what I mean? And put the so it doesn't. This is one of those things that unfortunately is gonna have to get worse before it gets better. You know what I mean? We got to see how the whole thing is gonna develop. You know what I mean? But I'm not too crazy about these things. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
hate to see this kind of gamingship being played because the problem is that at the end of the day, these two
We lose.
white guys, you know,
With a
who
lot
have
of
a lot of money,
Yeah. Both.
both of them,
Yeah,
you know,
100%.
two wealthy individuals. I'm trying to be racist here. I have no issues about white, black, blue, or yellow, or whatever you want to put onto the table. But I want to make it very clear that while we have an argument for these two men who are going to do very well financially, I am concerned about the person that's got to go to the supermarket saying,
Exactly, yeah.
I don't think I can buy the whole dozen of eggs.
Correct.
I don't think that because but these are the guys making those choices, those decisions.
They're fighting.
And so when you have somebody saying we have to do what we did in order to rescue the economy, another very smart guy who apparently knows nothing. I'm wondering what was the last time, Neil deGrasse Tyson, that you actually went personally to a
To the
supermarket
supermarket.
to buy some eggs. I would love to know that. Because apparently you don't understand
Yeah.
that putting that much money into the system is precisely what created the problem that we're facing right now
Yeah.
at a country level. And whatever you think was prevented then is actually happening now,
Yeah.
and it can potentially get a lot worse. But again,
Yeah.
we'll see how that's going to go.
I think the answer is Shakira needs to make a song to air out what's going on with both Biden and everybody
Shakira,
else.
la canción.
Yeah, she's gonna be the one
Llamando la
to yes,
atención del
100%. Yeah, she
That's
needs to do
too
it.
funny.
With that being said,
Yep.
thank you guys for being part of this
No, I'm
conversation
excited,
today.
yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you for
Yeah.
being part of this
Yeah.
conversation today. If there was anything here that was of your liking or you believe that somebody else should be paying attention to some of the conversations that we're having right now, pass it around. Make sure you
And
like it,
let us
subscribe.
know if you agree, disagree,
Yep.
like whatever it
Please.
is. Put it in the comment,
comment.
share,
Comment below.
Yep.
and yeah, have us debate. We want to fight about something. We're just trying to figure out what it is.
It's coming. It's
Yeah,
coming, I
it's
promise
You
you.
don't disagree.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, yeah, right.
Have a good one. We'll see you next one. Take care. Bye-bye, bye-bye.
Awesome.